and also OPTX and some of the stuff that DeFi Dude said in one of his last AMAs. So stay tuned. Around the last few weeks, and I just wanted to come on and share a couple things. One is, a while back I made a video and I talked about referrals on my channel, and obviously my channel, I want to be able to make people aware of things and understand risks, and I also want to monetize that, but I also don't like the referral systems. And I'm trying to figure out a way to be able to, make this worth my time, kind of going through contracts and looking through things. But I don't want to take advantage of my subscribers. I don't want to push projects that then fail and people lose money. The fact is, YouTubers in general, they make money. They make a lot of money, and it's usually not with their own money. There's the big ones like James Pelton and things like that he really pushes projects, and I think he just came out with a rant video today saying, hey, I'm gonna push these projects no matter what, and if you don't like it, just don't watch, which is fine. But just know, whenever you watch a YouTuber that use referral links or pushing a project, most of the time they didn't invest the bulk of that with their own money, because they either made it from a previous project that paid them, or the current project gave them money to push the project, and then they invested it. But also understand, when they get these projects, people come to them first before they launch, and they're usually like the very earliest investors in these projects, so their risk is way lower than everybody else's. On top of that, they get a bunch of referral money, they get the sponsorship money. So when you see these guys say, I made $10,000 in a day, or I made $100,000 in a month, most of that they're making off of sponsorships and referrals from everybody else. Their results are not realistic of what you can expect in these dApps, and they should be very clear about when they say, oh, I'm making all this money in this dApp, where that money is actually coming from, and how it all began and how it all compounded, because they start with a few of them, they build up subscribers, and it kind of snowballs into this giant thing where they're making $1 million a year, and then they complain that they have to take time away from their children for an hour to make a video and say, of course I'm getting paid for this hour that I'm sitting here making this video explaining why I take all this money from people. Anyway, that rant is over. Let's talk about Yield Robot, and I guess with this, would you guys rather, me start some kind of Patreon subscription service, or where we have more private videos where I go through these things, or would you rather me just throw out these referral links? Do you care? That's what I want to know. So leave those comments below if you actually care that people use referrals. It's always felt kind of slimy to me that people do this, but if people just don't care, then whatever. I'd rather go with more like a subscription type service, but yeah, just let me know. So Yield Robot, I just want to talk about a couple things that stick out to me. Obviously it's very similar to Stable One, that obviously was a flaming garbage pile. So with this is straight BUSD, which I like. A couple things that really stick out to me is 2% daily return. A lot of people don't understand that things like this are still not sustainable. People are like, oh, but they have trading bots in the background. Yes, but that only goes so far. If they have 10,000 deposits, and and those are all making 2% a day. Let's have a look. Let's have a look and see what that really comes out to in say a year's time. Let's do a compound. Let's do a compound calculator here. Pop this up. Let's say we put this in. We put in $500. and our interest is 2% per day for a year. And let's just do that flat one. We just put in 500 bucks, let it just compound. After a year, you'll have $150,000. Now times that by 10,000. Let's see. Let's grab a calculator here. 10,000. We'll do times 150. Let's see. So that's million. So this thing would generate $1.5 billion in a year. I don't think that's going to be realistic. That's an average of, you know, $500 deposit. Obviously, some are greater, some are smaller. But the fact that this is going to last a year, it's not likely. So this is definitely one of those things. If you're going to get into this thing, get in, get your ROI back as soon as possible, get it out of here, and just play with money, with the house money. Do not let it just sit here. Don't lock up any funds anywhere. You know, if it's not in your wallet, you don't own it. And something like this could just disappear and be gone. They could take down the site. You know, the 2 million that's in the contract could just be gone, poof, and you would no longer see it. So that's one thing. The return's really high. The other thing that people say is, oh, well, it's making 2% daily returns. Well, the bots have to actually make more than that to sustain the contract. And let me explain why. You have 2.2 million sitting here that have been deposited, right? Now, if we look at, here is the contract. It has 1.6 million sitting in the contract, which is not being traded. They actually have to remove stuff from this wallet or the contract to be able to trade it. So that's just sitting there. It's not generating anything. There's no trades happening. Nothing's happening with those funds. So yeah, I mean, that's not even $1 million. It's generating 2% for the 2 million that's deposited. So basically their bots have to return, I think, somewhere in the range of 6 to 8% a day to generate 2% on this deposited amount. So just be aware, 6 to 8% per day on trading is insanely high and not realistic. You know, I've talked about this before with stable fund. These high amounts every single day and just guaranteeing a rate is just totally insane and not realistic. So I'd put this on a scale of, you know, is this sustainable? Maybe a 2 out of 10, because it's probably generating something if they actually have trading bots. When I look down here, it actually shows some trades. But I mean, for instance, you know, these are the high, you know, assume these ones are 7%, but these have been running for a while. You know, so for instance, this BTC BUSD trade bot here that's running, it's made 7.44% overall. It has not made that per day. Yeah, I mean, if you go back through all these, yeah, there's a lot that have been bought. So I mean, honestly, when these things are bought and they're just open for a long time, that usually tells me it's probably just a grid bot as well. When I see something open and never close for a long time, that usually tells me these are a lot of grid bots, which, I mean, it's not bad, but it's not like, you know, there's no AI behind it. It just creates a grid and trades up and down off those grids. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about Yield Robot. I looked at the contract and I wasn't that impressed. I mean, the watchdog.cc, I'm not too impressed with their summary here. There's not a lot of details here. I had a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's audited, but you know, obviously that there's things a lot that are audited now that doesn't really mean a whole lot. So so that is Yield Robot. We'll get rid of that stuff. Next, I want to talk about this AMA and also about OPTX. you know, kind of the smoke, you know, things are kind of settling down from the giant flaming ball of fire that stable fund was. And, you know, there's DeFi dude, he really pushed this thing hard. He pushed stable fund like crazy. And then about the end of October, he just bailed and left and didn't even say anything about it, didn't do anything about it, and just left, you know, basically all of his subscribers hanging. He did this, you know, quote unquote AMA. He wasn't really asked too hard of questions, really, about this. You know, does he know Michael? Blah, blah, blah. Of course, he's going to say no. And I don't know. There's several things he said in this AMA that I'm just like, wait, what? First, he said, you know, and you can go to this. Maybe I'll just leave a link to it below. One thing he said, they're like, hey, did you get paid? And he says, no, I got paid $500 for stable one back in the day. And then he said something that he just kind of glossed over and that I knew about, and I knew he had held a lot of, that Michael gifted him 1,000 S-Rocket. And that was, you know, it was just kind of glossed over and moved on. Nobody even mentioned anything about that later in the AMA. Nobody even touched it. Maybe because most people in stable fund were not really involved too much in S-Rocket. So let's look at it. S-Rocket was a token, obviously, from stable one, you know, stable one rocket. Let's pull it up here. It's kind of taking a little while. So this thing, it's kind of was the flagship token of stable one. This is kind of Michael's baby. It really took off and actually did quite well for a while. But he gifted 1,000 of these tokens to DeFi dude. And that doesn't sound like, you know, a lot, especially at its current price of 60 cents. But he gifted it to him like back in here somewhere. It was like maybe even June or July, somewhere back in here. Even if it was back here at like 10 bucks, I mean, that's still like 10 grand that he just gifted him. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't know somebody and then just gifts them 10 grand. That's just shady to me that he said. But the thing is when he came out in his group and dumped all of stable fund stuff, he also dumped all of his S-Rocket, and he dumped it right here. That's when he came out and said, I'm getting out of this thing, and he dumped it right here. So he dumped it for $104, and he had 1,000 of them. So what Michael gifted him was $104,000. It wasn't just like, you know, oh yeah, you just gave me a little bit of this thing that's not worth anything. He had, yeah, he made bank on Michael. And for somebody that doesn't know him, Michael gave DeFi dude quite a bit of money for pushing his stuff. So that's S-Rocket. And then he also said a couple things. He also said, there's another one he talked about. Oh, he was like, oh yeah, and I was pushing Michael to dox because, you know, I've got all these other investors that would, you know, jump in this thing if he dox and blah blah blah. Dude, I'm gonna call you out, DeFi dude. You're running a project. Like, why don't you dox then? Like, if you were really pushing him to dox, why aren't you? Here's your project over here. And there's some shady stuff going on over here that I'll talk about in a second. But dude, just come out and dox then. I mean, if you're pushing other people to dox, then that they'll, you know, bring in more investment, like, step up and do it yourself. It's insane that you're calling on other people to come out and, you know, one thing is I hate when people are like, oh, you can just privately dox to me, or another one was, oh, they KYC'd with this project or whatever. And I don't really care if they KYC to another, you know, entity, because that basically says they provided government documents to some other place. It's like, yeah, of course people are KYC. They have driver's licenses and passports, and that's the same thing. You basically, you know, identify yourself to some other agency. You know, if you want to see a picture of me, I'll throw a picture of myself. I use my name on my channel, and so, dude, if you want to, you know, walk the talk here and do what you ask other people to do, then go ahead and dox yourself. The next thing I want to talk about OPTX and DeFi Dude is this OPTX thing. They moved to OPTX, and it's supposed to be this thing where you lock up your tokens, and it's got these taxes. It's like 10% sell tax or something like this. But I mean, look at all these sells that are going through. Just today, I mean, the volume is so low, probably because it's Saturday, but 13 buys and 20 sells. Liquidity is almost half of what it was when it started. So yeah, let's talk about this as well. I looked at the contract really quick. Let me pop that open here. It's 4,000 addresses are holding this, which is like 35% less than what was holding OP3. So I mean, they're losing share there. And then I looked at the contract, and of course, you know, I like to read these contracts. So let's go ahead and look at the code. We'll pop this baby open. Go through here. There's one thing that really bugged me when I saw it. Under the owner functions, they can change who receives the transfer fees, who receives the buy fees, who receives the sell fees, blah, blah, blah. But there's one down here. Here it is. Set fee exempt. This basically allows them to make an address exempt from like selling. So, you know, I understand they need it for if they've got a bot that's holding the floor, but they should have programmed that into the contract so they could not change that after the fact. But they could be like, hey, if DeFi Dude's got a buddy or developers themselves, they could buy and sell this thing without any tax, and everybody else would have a tax. That function right there is very shady and not cool. Yeah, they can basically, like any of their friends or something, they can be like, you get no taxes, but everybody else does. So that's just something to be aware of. I'm not sure if this seems even audited yet. I think they just kind of threw it together and threw it out there, and maybe they'll audit it later. I don't know. I think projects should audit before they release stuff, because it's just not cool. Anyway, guys, that's what I am thinking about the last couple of projects that have been going on. Again, yeah, leave comments below. Tell me what you think about referrals or some kind of subscription service or something. You know, obviously I don't want to make a fortune off this, but I also want to make it worth my time. And just for those people that are asking, yes, I am still working on my dApp. Yeah, it's various bots, it's various moving parts and pieces. It's all going to be automated, very transparent about what's going on. It's not going to be a flat, you know, huge amount you're going to earn every single day. There will be days where you make a lot. There'll be days when you make a little, but you know, the hope is that you consistently make profit every day. But it's not going to be guaranteed at a certain percentage. But yeah, the contracts are still in the works with that. I've just struggled with developers getting that across the finish line. But yeah, that's all in the works. But again, yeah, leave comments in the comments below. Let me know what you think. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that red button. If you like the video, like it. If you don't like it, hit that dislike button twice. And we will catch you in the next one.